Welcome, language learners. If you're looking to truly master English modal verbs, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're going to decode these absolutely critical grammatical structures and basically lock them into your brain for good. You can think of modals as these little magic words that completely transform the meaning of your main verbs. It's going to be a highly detailed, zero fluff guide. So let's just dive right in. Okay, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll establish our 4 golden rules. Then we'll take deep dives into ability and permission, giving advice and obligation, prohibition versus optionality, probability and certainty, and finally, we'll wrap up by looking at some major syntactic red flags.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the 4 golden rules.
So before we even talk about what these words actually mean, we absolutely have to talk about how they behave. There is this rigid, foundational syntax that governs all true modal verbs. Basically, they are morphologically invariant. Fancy term, I know, but it just means they do not change form for tense, ever. You never add an S for he or she, you never put the word to directly after them, and you never ever use do, does, or did to make them a question or a negative. We need to immediately banish any thoughts of saying things like she cans or do you can. It's just not how they work. Moving right along to Section 2, ability and permission.
Now let's analyze how we express what we are actually capable of doing. Let's play a little something I call the superpower game. You see, when we talk about ability in the past, English makes a really strict distinction. We use the pure modal could for general past superpowers. These are things that were just generally true over a period of time, like, I could run fast in high school. But, and this is key, you must use the semi-modal was able to when you're talking about successfully completing a single specific action. Usually this means you overcame some specific difficulty to make it happen.
Okay, let's test this immediately with a quick concept check. The sentence is, we all thought Diane would be late, but she blank make it on time. Do we use could or was able to? I'll give you a second. All right, if you said was able to, you hit the nail on the head. You are absolutely correct, because this describes a single specific past achievement, not some general superpower Diane always had. Now, moving from ability over to permission, this brilliantly illustrates the fine art of asking for things. Your choice of modal completely dictates your level of formality or your register. Can is informal. It's perfectly acceptable for your peers or casual settings like, can I borrow your pen? Could softens the request. It shows a bit of social deference, making it polite and semi-formal. And then there's may. May is strictly institutional and highly formal. You use can for a friend's pen, sure, but a customs officer is always going to use may when asking for your passport. All right, let's jump into Section 3, giving advice and obligation. So let's put on our helpful friend and rule maker hats for a minute, exploring how we tell people what's good for them versus what is absolutely required of them. Channeling the helpful friend first, notice how advice actually scales in strength. We start with the gentle should for a helpful opinion. Then we step up to ought to, which carries a little more moral weight or expectation. But when you drop the semi-modal had better, well, you are issuing a very strong warning. It forcefully implies that there are going to be direct negative consequences if your advice is ignored. Now let's switch gears and introduce the rule maker. When advice turns into a strict obligation, you generally have 2 choices, must or have to. But they aren't exactly the same. Must represents a subjective internal requirement. It literally comes from the speaker's own authority or a personal conviction. Like, I must phone my dad today. Nobody is forcing you. You feel the need. Have to, on the other hand, is driven by external laws, schedules, or bosses. You wear uniform at work because an external authority demands it, so you have to do it. Time for another concept check. The sentence is, I blank submit the report before the end of the week. Does this situation require must or have to? Think about it. Okay, have to is the correct answer here. Why? Because an administrative deadline is an external, objective obligation imposed by a boss or a company. It's not just a personal internal feeling. That brings us to Section 4, prohibition versus optionality. Okay, we really need to prepare for a notorious beginner trap right here. It's all about the negative forms of those obligation modals we were just looking at. What's absolutely fascinating is that these 2 negatives are not opposites. Think about it.
While must and have to mean basically the same thing when they're positive, their negative forms are totally different beasts. Mustn't means strict prohibition. It is forbidden. You cannot do it, period. Don't have to, however, simply indicates a lack of necessity. It just means you can if you want to, but it's completely optional. No one is making you do it.
Let's test that logic real quick. You blank wear a tie in our office, but some people like to dress more formally. Are you choosing mustn't or don't have to? Take a second. You definitely want to choose don't have to. The second half of the sentence tells us some people choose to wear a tie anyway, which means it is totally an option, not a strict prohibition. Moving on to Section 5, Probability and Certainty. So, this is the grammar we use when we're kind of on the fence and just want to speculate about reality. Let's look at this probability scale and see how the certainty builds. We use these specific modals to express our logical deductions. If you are, say, 95% certain based on solid evidence, you use must. If it's a logical expectation, about 80%, you use should. A 50-50 flip of a coin guess, that's may. If the chance is quite low, maybe 30 or 40%, you drop down to might or could. And finally, when you hit 100% logical impossibility, no way it's true, you use can't. Let's do one more check on this. That blank be Peter's coat. It is far too small. Are you going to choose might not or can't? Can't is the only correct option here, because the physical size of the coat makes it a logical 100% impossibility for it to belong to Peter.
And finally, Section 6, Syntactic Red Flags. Okay, final stretch. Let's enter our review phase. We are going to look at and correct the most frequent structural errors made by learners. These are the syntactical red flags that totally violate those 4 golden rules we talked about at the very beginning. Just notice these errors. Overgeneralizing that third-person S to say she cans, that's a huge no. Inserting the infinitive to say I must to leave. Nope. Or using a dummy auxiliary like did or don't alongside a modal, like did you can swim or I don't can swim. Never ever do these. The correct forms strictly obey morphological invariants. Just keep it simple. She can. I must. Can you? I cannot.
And here is another major red flag to watch out for: syntactic stacking. In standard formal English, you simply cannot stack 2 pure modals right next to each other. She might can go is an ungrammatical collision. It sounds messy. To fix this, you must pair your first modal with a semimodal. So, she might be able to go is the correct standard form we're looking for. Wow, we have covered a tremendous amount of ground today, haven't we? From general abilities to polite permissions, from strict rules to logical impossibilities. So I want to leave you with a thought. How will strictly applying these rules transform your confidence in everyday English conversations? Well, by removing the guesswork and strictly applying this framework, you are no longer just hoping your sentence is right, you are engineering it correctly. Take these golden rules, banish those red flags, and confidently apply all of this to your real-world communication. Keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.